Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our holiday edition of the Township Board meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's holiday season is going well in preparation. Let's start off, additions, deletions.
Motion to delete number 7, lot split 386.
Support.
I've talked to a few folks about this, but for me, this is a good example of why I think R1E needs to be tweaked. There's no time limit on this, as far as I understand. The next step on this is to have a discussion before the Planning Commission, but I'd like to see if we can get to the proposal stage at least before we approve this, just as a way to remind us that I think this is something we need to do. So that's why I'm proposing deleting this tonight.
Comments by the board? Well, I don't think this is the way to handle it. What we have in number 7 is a specific case, and what you're talking about is an ordinance that it sounds like it needs to be looked at, but you can't hold up the case. These people can come back if they want to, if it's ruled against them. There would be nothing to stop them from, if R1E is changed, to actually come back and use the new one, R1E, when that happens. But with nothing on the, absolutely nothing on the table right now as to how the Planning Commission would review this, when they'd review it. I don't think you hold this specific issue that they have already heard out there. You just don't put it in abeyance and hope somebody remembers it. So I myself would be against taking it off. Other comments? Hearing none.
Well, can I just ask one? I'm sorry, Jim.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just ask one question? Kyle, can you just explain what giving us some time then could do for it?
For me, it's just, there's no time limit to deny this by. Like everything that I've read and understand is we have to deny this or we blow up our zoning code. So it feels weird that that's how it goes, but the reason that is so is if we want to change it, we have to change our ordinance. So keeping this on our agenda, I feel like compels us to try at least get a proposal forward. If the discussion at the Planning Commission happens in January, people say they don't want to move it forward, then I will say let's vote on it, get it done with. But for me, having this out there reminds us of the reason why we need R1E to be looked at. So that's just where I'm at.
Why wouldn't you just go to your Planning Commission? You're the liaison and have that put on the agenda and have the discussion.
I have.
That's the way to handle it, I think.
I understand. This is I think a power I have as a board member to try and move something forward. So that's what I'm trying to exert here. And if I don't convince the other board members, I understand.
Yeah, Kyle, I was just going to say this particular individual case, there needs to be some closure on that because there are other avenues available to the Vogels, even under the current scenario.
No. Well, they could go to court, but they don't want to do that.
They have.
Yeah.
They do have avenues, and I don't know if there are any timing issues with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Right.
Yeah, they have, within a certain amount of
Right.
time, they have to file their appeal. But, okay, we know that. Anybody else?
I suppose, our zoning code should work for the people and with the people, and unfortunately, in some of the R1E neighborhoods, especially the older ones, you have much smaller lots than are allowed now. And it creates a lot of problems on ZBA. You were on ZBA for a while, Jim, so I know you're aware that, just an example, on Heikkuri Drive where I live, every one of our lots is shaped like a tetrahedron? Trapezoid. And what that means is we're all too close to our property lines. So if you wanted to put a 1-foot extension on your deck, you need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I do think Kyle's right. This needs to be addressed. And
Well, I think we all agree with that, and it should be taken to the Planning Commission and addressed. but they also have ruled on a specific case, and that needs to be brought to closure. Because it doesn't hurt, by bringing it to closure, it certainly doesn't hurt them in any way. If that R1E is changed, they're going to be good to go. So, I just think we should bring that to closure and then, work on the R1E. I think we're totally in agreement on that. Other comments? All right, we have a motion to delete action item number 7, action item number 7, which is the lot split. Since we've had various comments, why don't we do a roll call vote? Kyle?
Yes to delete.
Okay, this is number 7. Carl?
Yes to delete.
Okay, Uda?
Yes to delete.
Okay, David?
Yes.
Yes to
No,
delete?
yes, no to delete, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry, Jameson?
Yes.
Okay, and Joe?
Aye.
And I vote
Sorry.
nay. And I vote nay. So number 7, we just brought our agenda down. Okay, cross that one off. Anyone else?
Mr. Supervisor, I move to delete action item number 4, false alarm ordinance modification.
Support?
Theory behind that is that the police chief and the commission have presented to Township Council a proposed false alarm ordinance that will be ready in January for our next meeting. I would like to have it put on the agenda for the first January meeting.
Okay, any questions or comments? Hearing none, we have a motion to delete action item number 4, false alarm ordinance modification. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is deleted. And then I'd like to make a motion to delete action item number 2, managerial handbook amendments.
Support.
Thank you. It wasn't ready for our vote tonight, so it'll be coming back probably at the next meeting. Other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of deleting?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Very good. Now I would like to get a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So motioned.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So we have our agenda approved, which will consist of the consent agenda. Action items number 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, and 5. No, I'm missing 1, and 6. All right. Okay. Next, public comment. And I believe we're going to have some public comment. 3 minutes, name and address, please. Agenda items only. Do I first see anybody in the audience that has any public comment? Jay, if you would.
Thank you, Jim. Jay Frucci, 22338 Gage Avenue. I am here. I think this is going to be a much easier meeting than I thought it might be 24 hours ago, or maybe 30 hours ago. So we are, I'm here on behalf of the Grosse Ile Golf and Country Club regarding the bike path proposal and what appears to be a pretty good workable solution to, at least with respect to our portion of it. We've been consistent throughout on this that we are concerned about safety. It's not about aesthetics. It's not about access to the property, that sort of thing. And that's been both publicly and privately. We've been consistent on that basis. We don't look at, these modifications as being a victory for the club over the township or over the BPAC or anything like that. We just look at this as a much better solution in the short run and the potential for a better solution in the long run. And we look forward to potentially working with the township and BPAC if and when future proposals come up. We view our role in the township as being an important one, and we take it very seriously. We allow a significant amount of township community use of the property through golf outings. The swim team uses our pool. The golf team uses our course. The homecoming pictures every year. There are hundreds of people out there taking pictures. And then the sled hill, which was mentioned at the study session, and that's been used for probably since the course has been there. We believe that that role in the community includes helping to guide towards a better solution here, and so we feel like that is a victory for everybody. We did, in fact, there's been some discussion about the fact that we did say no on this proposal several times over the years, and that's really been for the same reason that we said no when this proposal came up originally this time. But that does not mean that we were not willing to speak to people at the township. My discussions with prior leaders has suggested that, it was similar to our approach this time, which was, we don't think this makes sense. Try to convince us otherwise. And we think we've been relatively consistent. I'm glad that Mr. Yeager and I were able to work collaboratively on this. And I think, whatever communication issues there have been, I think we've kind of broken through on many of those. And want to point out that as part of this kind of solution, we have committed to, formally committed through a board vote to work collaboratively with the township if and when there is a future proposal to try to come up with something that could be very exciting for the community as a whole and much safer than what we've been looking at. So I just wanted to say those few things and look forward to the discussion later.
Thank you.
And I would just like to add that, Jay, you've been an absolute pleasure to work with, very honorable gentleman, so I appreciate the time we've spent together over the past couple of weeks, so
Right.
Thanks a lot.
Right. Mr. Yeager and I walked the full length of Bellevue together on a cold Saturday morning and picked up a couple of golf balls while we were out there and some trash. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Brian.
Good evening. Brian Pawlik, Chair of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, Groseal resident. I just wanted to state that from a BPAC perspective, we've always been about trying to get consensus, win-win-win situations. And I'm glad that we're able to move forward with stuff and be able to, work with the country club. I encourage anyone else that has issues to always come to, our meetings to talk about stuff or, reach out to Jameson or I. We're happy to talk with folks. No one has a monopoly on good ideas, and together we make the best projects possible. So again, if you have interest in walking the Bellevue sidewalk or anything else related to BPAC, I encourage you to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else?
Who's supposed to maintain this after it's in place?
This is. This is a comment section, not a question and answer session. So that hopefully will be taken care of when we have our discussion on the issue itself. If that's your only
That's my only concern.
thing is who's taking.
I think that it's.
It won't be the country club.
Well, I'll
mean,
cover
And
it
we'll
in
cover
my.
it.
Is it going to be township dollars?
Well,
Because we've already.
we'll
put-
answer that. We'll answer that at the proper time.
Right.
Other comments?
Hi, Margaret Shelton, Bellevue Road. My concerns are very similar and they're not questions, so I assume that you're going to touch on this when you go through the presentation. But I think a lot of us have concerns about the maintenance and who is going to pay for that and how it's going to be managed. The other concern to me that has the potential for serious cash flow from a township point of view is any potential for legal concerns. You know, we've heard from, I golf, not too impressively. You hear from the golfers, you know, that their balls can go anywhere. You have a slice and a kid gets hit, who's going to pay? You know, if somebody wants to, we're very litigious now, who's going to pay for that? I assume it's not going to be the country club. It's probably, I assume, perhaps going to be the township. But I think we just need to hear all of these. There's a lot of pros, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I just think we really have to cover our bases. Our budget's very limited as of late, and we've already talked about that in other meetings, and it's just a big concern to me that we're now going to add potentially something else that could drain us. So just throwing that out there. I'm sure you guys are going to cover that, but that is a big concern for a lot of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we'll turn it over to Brian, who has a handful of comments.
Yes, I do have a few this evening. First up, Kristen Shamus, Knudsen Drive. I've been an Islander since 2003 when I married a lifelong Islander. We are raising our family here on Grosse Ile. We love the open spaces in the bike path, the tight-knit community, and the family-friendly atmosphere. However, for 20 years, I have been perplexed by the lack of sidewalks and the way that our bike path runs only through the center of the island, skipping our most beautiful waterfront roads, East River and West River roads. Our first island home was on Dreschfield at the corner of Ruthmere. I longed to go for walks or ride my bike along the water, but it wasn't safe for me to do so without sidewalks or a bike path. And that was especially true once the kids were born and I was pushing a stroller. There's practically no shoulder on much of West River. Recently, it came to my attention that the Downriver Linked Greenway has secured grants and offered to fund new sidewalks on West River and Bellevue roads that will link our community with sidewalks on GI Parkway, Jefferson to Elizabeth Park, and even to the Metro Parks and Wildlife Refuge. I am writing to ask that the board please support this project. I hope it will be the beginning of a much-needed expansion of sidewalks, the bike path, and will make this community much more walkable, bikeable, and enjoyable to live in. Thanks for your consideration. Heather Westphal, Concord Road. I would like to express my desire for you to vote in approval of the bike path along Bellevue and West River West roads that would connect us to Trenton and the parks near the island. I would love for myself and my family to be able to ride and walk to the refuge in Elizabeth Park or just Trenton in general. I also feel like this would add value to the island as a whole and make our town a little more desirable to live in. Being that the path would not cost the township or taxpayers any funds because of the grants, this seems like a win for the island. I strongly encourage you to approve the proposed bike path. Erin, Heikkuri, Thorofare. I live on Grosse Ile and support the sidewalk project on Bellevue and West River roads. Rebecca and Peter Kung, Stout Avenue. Honorable Township Trustees, I am writing you in support of the proposed sidewalks along Bellevue and West River roads. I ask that you approve this project at your upcoming Township Board meeting. I have 2 children and both have taken swimming lessons at Water's Edge Pool. One summer there was a group of children biking to the swim club at Water's Edge every day, and we several times have biked there from Stout Avenue. This sidewalk would significantly improve the ease of access for children and families and also improve safety. Our kids need activities to do that are healthy, constructive, and safe, and biking is a great activity for most parents, but most parents want kids to be able to bike off the road. Many kids, especially younger, tend to weave on their bicycles as a path or sidewalk is much better than a road. Bicycles take up less space, which will improve the parking situation at Water's Edge as well. We have also biked to Elizabeth Park, but have not tried that a second time because it is too dangerous to bike on the south of the parkway. This path would connect to the route and make it possible for people to safely walk or bicycle to our neighboring areas as well. Please vote yes on a motion approving the construction of these important sidewalks. Saba, Cossor, Shorline Drive. Dear Township Board, I have 3 children ages 14, 12, and 5 years, and a sidewalk on West River and on Bellevue would make it much safer for them to bike to get to the country club or to Water's Edge. I'm asking you to support the building of these using the funds provided by the Downriver Linked Greenway. Robbin Moyer, East River. I am in total favor of the proposal for the cyclist paths for many reasons. First, the funding would not come from Grosse Ile, and how often does that opportunity arise? It is safer for our children to ride their bikes on a path versus a street. We are supporting every age group and creating more independence for all ages. Maybe a few more people discovering the beauty of Grosse Ile, bringing younger demographics to the island. More physical activity and outdoor activity when you have opportunity to ride further. I was previously a member of the Destination Downriver, and I am in awe of what they have accomplished. If you decide to accept this proposal, I will be just as proud. Jane Fijal, Hawthorne Glen. In regard to the sidewalk in Bellevue, I collected signatures for a total of 12 hours from our local residents at Kroger to encourage the Grosse Ile Board of Directors to give BPAC and other organizations a green light to go ahead with the project. As an avid cyclist on the island and around the country during my vacations, I'm asking you to please pass the vote so the island can have a safe way transporting themselves from point A to point B on Bellevue. The following benefits would work once the board passes: encourages people to utilize the sidewalk to visit the country club, Smokies on the Water's Edge recreational activities at the pool, ice rink, and volleyball court. Increases more business for the above establishments. The sidewalk would increase tourism, where again expands the establishments not only on Bellevue, but to encourage other residents to bike and walk from their homes to the businesses. Close to my heart, I would love to see more senior citizens, wheelchair users, and other abled people to get there safely. I was thinking of this couple who live next to Macomb Lions Park. I know they use their scooters with their little pups. I would love to see them riding along so they can enjoy their meals at Smokies and watch boats or even to concerts. Again, at Smokies on Thursdays, their parking lots are always full for summer concerts. There would be more traffic on those days, and with the sidewalk, more people can come and enjoy the concert as well from other source of transportation, such as their legs or their two wheels. This sidewalk can provide a safe and independent way for young adults to take themselves to the pool on their own. There are no private home owners on that portion of the road that would discourage this project from happening, just like the 12-year-old bike path project on Horsemill. Granted, yes, the sidewalk may not be safe due to the golfers' loose balls in the area. I have ridden on many trails in Arizona where they have beautiful paths along perimeter of their golf courses. Not only the balls could be the problem, which is random. What about drunk drivers, distracted drivers, disgruntled drivers, and who do not know that they can safely pass a cyclist with 3-foot passing rule? Enough said, and thank you for considering this. Pam Watts, Island Boulevard. I am writing to voice my support of the new bike path sidewalk to connect Grosse Ile to the Iron Bell Trail and other downriver greenways. One of the major selling points to moving my family to the island over 2 years ago was the bike path and the trail access. Adding the ability for walkers, runners, and cyclists to utilize a connector to and through the island would be an amazing addition. I urge the board to support the initiative and take advantage of the grant money that has been secured for this project. Matt Ott, Loma Circle. I am a resident of Grosse Ile, and I support the proposed bike trail project on Meridian, Bellevue, West River Road, and across the bridge. Biking on the roads is dangerous, and this would be a great addition to the Grosse Ile bike trail system. Christine Ridlicki, Thorofare. I am writing to support the grant for Grosse Ile Township has been granted. I'm going to start that one again. I am writing to support the grant that Grosse Ile Township has been granted to complete a path that will connect Grosse Ile to the Iron Bell Trail, making riding and walking to the Water's Edge facility and the Grosse Ile Golf and Country Club safer for our residents. This chance to receive millions handed to us is not something we can afford to pass up. Our residents deserve a safe way to bike and walk to Elizabeth Park, downtown Trenton, and the new Detroit River Conservation Area, not to mention bringing others to bike on our island, shop at our stores, attend our festivals, and eat at our restaurants. It would be irresponsible and poor decision-making to turn down this grant. My family and I fully support this grant. Patrick Southward, East River Road. As a longtime Grosse Ile resident, I must say this has to be one of the worst ideas I've heard in a long time. Have they done a study to see how many people cross the Free Bridge to get to the connected bike trails on the Trenton side? Have you done a study on the amount of bike traffic currently going down Bellevue? Why not just do a shared roadway and make it accordingly for bike vehicle traffic? Why would you do this project before major repairs to the Free Bridge are done? I am not in favor of this project. Ben Brown, Lakewood. We are all for additional bike paths on the island. In particular, we like The idea of connecting Grosse-Ile bike paths with Elizabeth Park, Detroit River International Wildlife Refuge, etc. Additional outdoor recreational opportunities should be welcomed. Grant opportunities like this can't be missed. And I think I have like 3 more, so hold on one second. Carl and Elizabeth Diener, Park Lane. We are totally in favor of the proposal to connect our bike paths to the Iron Bell Trail system. Please approve. Lori Quinlan, Thorofare. I support a path on Bellevue as it will make walking to the Water's Edge Marina pool area safer in summer. Many children use this road to get to the pool. Also, the connection to Trenton will make travel by bike off the island much easier. And finally, Mark Henry, Sussex Street, Livonia. I do not live on Grosse-Ile, but I visit often enough to call it a second home. I walk the trails between Manchester and Lake all the time, and they are lovely. I think Grosse-Ile really benefits from its walkability and pedestrian accessibility. It's not only convenient, it encourages people to go outside. Where I'm from, there are little public trails due to the highways and neighborhoods. If there's room to put one, it would be a great opportunity to take advantage of the space. That is all.
Are you going to be able to talk the rest of the meeting? All right, thank you. All right, that was our public comment. I know that a gentleman walked in while Brian was reading. Do you have anything to say on that? If you do, please come up and
I just wanted to
name and address. And
I'm Mark Ferguson, 8457 Glengarry. I just came in support of the Greenway. I'm an avid runner and biker, and I think it just increases the safety, allows my kids, I'm a member of the country club as well, allows my kids to get to the country club on their own with the bike. So I thought it's a very good idea.
oh, thank you. Okay. With that, we will move on to consent agenda. David?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion for approval of consent agenda 23-087, which consists of minutes of the November 27th, 2023 regular meeting, check registers dated through December 1st, 2023, dangerous buildings officer contract, Oak Natural Commons conservation easement, the 33rd Judicial District Court budget, approval to process and distribute payments through December 29th, 2023, and minutes of the December 4th, 2023 special meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve consent agenda 23-087, which consists of the minutes of November 27th, 2023 regular meeting, the check register dated through December 1st, 2023, the dangerous building officer contract, Oak Natural Commons conservation easement, the 33rd Judicial District Court budget, approval to process and distribute payments through December 29th, 2023, and minutes of the December 4th, 2023 special meeting. We'll approve this by roll call since the 33rd District Court is a resolution. So, Joe?
Aye.
Jameson?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Uda?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
Kyle?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Our consent agenda is approved. Oh, all right. Which brings us to our action items. Joe, you have the pleasure of the first item.
Thank you. The Grosse-Ile Township Board hereby authorizes amendments to Section 2.4L, Direction and Control, Day-to-Day Administration, and 3.1, Section C, Appeals of Personnel Officer of the Grosse-Ile Township Policies and Procedures document. Verbiage amendments are listed in the attached documentation.
Support.
The amendments and changes that were discussed at the November 27th meeting of the Township Board have been added to the attached documents that we have here. Jim, do you need me to go over any of the changes, or we have them attached?
No, I think we're good unless someone has a question about them.
Okay.
Do you want to read them to the record?
I don't, we could go either way. They're enumerated here. They're gonna be part of the record, those sections.
Okay.
And if everybody's remembers what we discussed and looks at what was done, the quorum part, which was the discussion really on C, was added. I don't know what more there would be to say.
Oh, just for the public to know what we're talking about.
Do you want to read them? I mean, I have no problem if you want to actually read them, but I don't think it's necessary either way.
Well, I may be the only one.
I think that's fine. Let's have everybody understand what we're doing.
Joe, you want
you can
to?
provide a
Joe, you want to
synopsis?
read them?
Yeah, no, real quick. What I did is I been working on a leadership and retention policy for the Groseal Township. And what we did is I went through the policies and procedures with Derek, and there were some changes that I felt that were more appropriate for the township to work by. And these are part of it. Some of the manager's handbook, it wasn't ready. That's what the other issue was, where we deleted. It'll come back on one of the next meetings, Derek, or whenever you, meeting or two. But these were the two sections. I'll read it if you like to. I'll read them for you.
Just read what the final. Read
Okay.
what the final is. What
If-
we're adopting.
Yeah, this is the final product from the previous. If the township manager is absent for an extended period of time, she should designate an employee of the township to be authorized to act by his or her behalf during the duration of his absence. And let me read this other section. If there's an appeal to Derek by a non-union, union has their specific contractual routes, if you will, when they have some type of complaint or some kind of grievance or some kind of issue. So these were for other township personnel, but appeals of a decision of the township manager will be to the Groseal Township Board. Appeals require at least a quorum of the board to be present during the review of the appeal, and that's it. It's just a basic change to who the appeal goes to. It goes to the entire township board, and the day-to-day operations of the township on the previous one is handled by the township manager, and that's it for the two.
That's it.
That's basically it.
Okay.
So,
Any questions on that? Seeing none, we have a motion that the Groseal Township Board hereby authorizes amendments to Section 2.4L, Direction and Control of Day-to-Day Administration, and 3.1C, Appeals of Personnel Officer of the Groseal Township Policies and Procedure document. Verbiage amendment are listed in the attached documents. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. All right. Jameson,
Okay,
if you would,
so
please.
everybody should have adjusted proposed legislation. So I'll read the action item first. So I move that the Groseal Township Board hereby authorizes the Downriver Linked Greenways, Friends of the Detroit River, and Wayne County to proceed with sidewalk and crosswalk construction on Bellevue, Meridian Road, and West River Road, based on the attached plans, with the modification to the path design which eliminates the portion of the path along Grosse Eel Golf and Country Club as shown in the attached diagrams. And I'll put them up on the overhead when I'm done reading.
second.
Oh, I got more.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Oh,
I appreciate your excitement.
I'm excited about this.
Thank you, Joe, for trying to move it along.
I was trying to roll it.
This approval includes the authorization for construction easements on water's edge, which is township property, at the corners of West River Road at Bellevue and Grosse Ile Parkway. The township understands construction will include grade improvements and removal of a stairway on the western edge of the water's edge property. Secondly, permission to the downriver linked greenways, Friends of the Detroit River, and Wayne County to replace arbor vitae along West River Road and Bellevue within golf course property if needed. And again, that's referencing water's edge. Furthermore, the board recognizes that Grosse Ile Township does not share in any of the construction costs as designed. Reaffirms the understanding that said sidewalk, once complete, will belong to Grosse Ile Township and will be maintained by Grosse Ile Township without direct funding from DLGI, which is Downriver Link Greenways Initiative. And that we understand well, Downriver Linked Greenways makes no guarantees for future funding and maintenance. They will continue to resource and partner with us following the construction. So now you can.
Support. Oh,
Okay.
That was Joe. Joe,
saying a
I'm
word.
still bringing Joe's over. Joe gets the second on that one.
So I'll give the history, and then I'll point out a couple things in the packet real quick, not least of which is the modification. So Grosse Ile Township prides itself on its quality of life, including outdoor recreational opportunities such as its bike path system. To build on these recreation opportunities, the Grosse Ile Bicycle and Pedestrian Pathway Committee, Downriver Linked Greenways, and Friends of the Detroit River have recognized the need for better bicycle and pedestrian safety on Bellevue and GI Parkway corridors. In addition to safety improvements, construction of pedestrian paths in these areas will grant safe connections for residents to local destinations such as the GIGCC pool and the Water's Edge complex. Furthermore, this path will provide a pedestrian connection from the vast Grosse Ile non-motorized pathway system to the Trenton side of Grosse Ile Parkway, Elizabeth Park, and the rest of the Downriver Linked Greenways, and ultimately to the statewide Iron Bell Trail and Great Lakes Way. In addition to the above stated benefits, this project will help to achieve additional pathway network objectives, such as providing a competitive advantage for future grants to expand or maintain our system of bike paths by being part of these regional and state trails, achieving recognition as a pure Michigan trail town destination, and assist in the increase of economic development in the community, especially within the Macomb Street business corridor. Through a process that has spanned almost 10 years, multiple path options have been researched. The time spent on researching the multitude of options was done to ensure all viable alternatives were considered. After performing this research, the option presented has been determined to be the best option available to achieve the previously stated priorities. As such, the Downriver Linked Greenways has secured full funding for the design, permitting, and construction of this project. Postponing a decision on this project will place any future design, permit, or construction costs on Grosse Ile itself. So, which is why we have to modify and remove a piece of it as opposed to just changing that piece to meet the country club's concerns. So, in your handout, which I'll put up on the overhead because I know there's people watching tonight. So here you can see a top-down view of the Bellevue Road, and from the eastern edge of the country club's driveway to the western edge of their last cart path is the section of trail we'd like to eliminate. Here you can see it much more closely from the eastern edge. And then here, the western edge.
Jameson, could you go back up there and put that first slide up? Because that line, if the people can see it, I'm going to say it's purple. If you can point out what the change is? Or do you have another slide that shows the change?
Nope. What the change is you're correct. It's actually a red line, but it appears purple on our sheet here.
The purple line goes down Bellevue, right?
Right. So between those two red lines at either end, there will be no trail at this time.
Thank you.
It is BPAC's intent, and hopefully the intent of the board to eventually fill that gap through collaboration with the country club in order to create, a means for people to get from one end to the other that eliminates the concerns they have over ball strikes, but still enables people to either get out of the roadway or become separated from vehicular traffic. And I know Jay and I have talked about probably 100 different solutions. I think I spent more time with him this last week than I did with my wife. So I think we're going to find a way to do it. It's just, this goes out to bid with MDOT in February. So it's too late for us to try to re-engineer this. It has to go forward as engineered, and the only way to avoid a couple of the concerns, right? Aside from the country club's concerns, there were several retaining walls in that section that we can eliminate with construction easements, but I can't expect the board of the country club to rush into construction easements, right? So this just buys us more time to approach this as a phase 2, hopefully with additional support from DLGI, which they have not promised, but have said, is possible. So, Uda.
I think that was kind of my question is, will Downriver Link Greenway still go along with the grant? It's a considerable distance that we're removing. Essentially, if you take the sidewalk to that point, you have to go into the street or turn around and go back. So will they still support the grant if we ask them to remove this section?
They said they would. Of course, this still has to go to MDOT engineering, and that's always a risk that MDOT's not going to like the fact that we have a kind of a deadhead path. I think we can articulate to them like why, and that we need more time. That they'd probably be a little more supportive of it. But that's unfortunately that's the position we're in right now. So, but DLGI did tell me they we could remove a section if that was like the last thing we could do to try to get it done. Because what they really want, I would say that the connection to the mainland is maybe less important to islanders than it is to people off island, right? So what DLGI wants and what Friends of the Downriver want, they want Grosse Ile connected. So this meets the requirement to connect us. It just doesn't necessarily connect them all the way to our Meridian Trail. But some of the options that have been kind of floated is closing half of Bellevue along that section. We could potentially extend the shoulder a little bit and make it bike enabled, even though that wouldn't count as a pedestrian right away. It would still, from the perspective of someone walking or riding a bike, it doesn't really matter, right? So there are options there to complete it, some of which I think BPAC could actually undertake, depending on costs and all of that. So.
And I at the risk of it sounding, let's just go ahead. Obviously, when people are walking on the golf course or on one of the paths on the golf course, they are also at risk of getting hit by a wayward golf ball. Does a club like the Grosse Ile, any golf course, do people that enter a golf course sign a waiver in case of that, or how are they protected? Whereas a person walking on the sidewalk along Bellevue might not be protected. I just want to understand what the difference is.
I wouldn't want to speak on the country club's behalf. What I will say is, with this current, what I'm going to call phase 1 of the plan for now, hopefully there'll be a phase 2. People using the Bellevue corridor will be no closer to the tees than they were because there's no trail there. So the way Mr. Frucci explained it to me, which kind of made a lot of sense to me as a marksman, so if you consider, if I'm throwing a ball and I'm trying to hit one of those window cubes, I'm not always going to hit it, right? The further you go out from the window cube, the less likely I am to hit that spot, right? So the closer we move our pedestrians to to the tee, the more potential shot exposure there is, right? And I don't know the mathematics on that. I'm sure these guys could calculate it and get it down to a science. But I do believe them, right? There is a potential for that. I just think that if we go forward with it as is, with that piece missing, that'll give us time to work together to come up with some solutions that, works for everyone. So,
James, one more question. I think if I understood that properly, if phase one doesn't pass, we'll never get a chance at phase two.
Correct.
We
If
drop to
we
the bottom
don't
of their
pass
list.
this tonight, then it's pretty much a binary decision for the board at this point, right?
Okay.
Because DLGI is bidding our entire region at once in order to save money on mobilization and engineering costs. If we're not on board, we're not getting on board.
We're not getting him.
I will say, though, Trenton has committed to their side of the path. The former DTE site across the river, which is going to be turned into a battery factory, I forget which company it was, is putting in a river walk there, and that path will connect to this path. So it's really kind of part of a bigger system, right? A whole regional effort to make downriver more walkable, healthier, more bikeable, and create some intermodal transportation. I think you'll also see in your packet there's a couple of slides I excerpt from feedback from the master planning group, and one of the key takeaways from that was that everybody wants Grosse Ile to have great recreational opportunities, and walking, biking, running, cycling, all of those things are part of that. So people are asking for additional trails.
If I may, I also have we all got an email today from Zaid Bey, our rec director, and of course this was discussed by the rec commission on Thursday as well. We didn't take a vote per se, but there's a lot of consensus in favor of this trail, mainly because the potential to drive more foot traffic to Water's Edge, which is our public recreation facility, both children, seniors, and everybody else. So he wanted the board to know that as rec director and the commission that they also supported this plan.
Great. Yeah, I talked to Zaid today just to make sure he didn't have any additional concerns, so I appreciate him sending an email of support.
I think after you and I talked, and Zaid was mentioned about sending something out, I mean, you must have called him, excuse me, right after you talked to me, and that came out 5 minutes later.
He was pretty quick.
He was pretty quick on the trigger on that. Joe, did you have something?
Yes, if everybody's done, are you guys?
Well, I have some questions, but go ahead.
Uta, you set? Are you all set?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay.
Joe.
I just want to say quickly, I hope it's okay I know Ross Quero was saying that this would also allow him to get access to grants through the Community Development Department, so that was something he was, he seems generally supportive of.
I think he said TAP grants. I don't recall specifically what it stood for, but that's what he told me as well, that this was helpful to him.
Joe?
Yeah, I have actually a couple comments. First off, to Mr. Jay Frucci from the Country Club, the representative. We spoke a couple of times, and I just want to say thank you for how you handled this. Obviously, when two groups get together, and I'm not really saying the township board and the club, it's more we have the final say, I get that. But when you have this Greenways program and the country club, and I get your side. I mean, we talked about that. There's some things you weren't happy with. And when you take out this middle part, and I think, and I'm not being sarcastic, but if any balls are flying outside this part you've taken away, we got another issue to talk about. So I think you guys got a safe issue here. I think the people got a safe issue. I'm not going to go into it, but as an accident reconstructionist by profession right now that I am, I want to talk to Jameson about that middle part. There's some things that can happen, but that can keep what you want. But the way you handled this, and Jameson, the way you handled it, I just thank both of you, because this is what it's about on Grosse Ile. If the board has an issue and the people have an issue of something, and if we can't get together and try to make it palatable for both, then what are we accomplishing then if it's a one-sided deal? And I just appreciate that. Jay, I can't, and I can tell in your profession that you're very articulate and good about mediating things. Are you an attorney? Okay. So anyway, thank you, and Jameson, thank you too. I'm in favor, if this is palatable for the country club and it goes, the greenways, I did speak to an engineer, I just want to tell you this, that dealt with this group that used to be, he was from here. And said that if you have an issue that they're pushing and you got to remove a little part or do this for the whole issue to actually go through, they're very good to work with you because they don't want it. I mean, they what they have is that connection from the bridge. That bridge comes down, it'll come down to West River, it'll go past West River, then it'll come up in front of Water's Edge, and then it'll end, and then, if they got to go on the road for just a little bit and then back. I think when I see this, Jay or Jameson, either one, right past the parking lot, it looks like. Is that what? But
Well,
anyway.
so I mean, I think it's right before the parking lot. If
Well, I
you were
meant
coming from
the other
east.
way. Yeah,
Okay.
I meant like from Meridian past that way. But anyway, I get what you're saying. But thank you, and at least we got together and we could work things out. And that's a win-win for everybody, and it's not a one-sided deal. So thank you to both of you, especially.
Yeah, and I would say I actually had some notes up there. I didn't bring them up here with me, so I'll speak extemporaneously. But speaking to the members of the country club, right? I don't golf, but I do understand how important a historic organization is and a place where you take your family and everything like that, right? I'm certainly not trying to bulldoze, the ninth hole or anything like that. But there is also a need for people locomoting around the island on foot and on bikes and like Jane mentioned, on scooters and things like that. There's 250 people a day that cross Bellevue Road on the Meridian Bike Trail in the summertime. Obviously, in February on a cold day, probably not nearly as many. Jane went out. She spent 3 or 4 days at Kroger, only 4 hours a day. I'm sure a lot of people saw her. And she managed to collect 465 signatures of Islanders that are like, yeah, I'd like to have this bike path, right? I don't necessarily think it has to be the one that was the engineering drafts that Grosse Ile Golf and Country Club had some concerns about, but we need something, right? And if anybody, and I'm sure there's people here, this gentleman mentioned he's a cyclist, I know Brian's a cyclist. If you want to cross the bridge on a bicycle, the scary part isn't the bridge. It's the approach, where you are stuck in traffic and you're going 20 miles an hour or less and the cars are piling up behind you and the other ones are going by going this way at 40. So what this does is it gets you to the bridge on a trail. The bridge already has a trail. It's suboptimum, right? But maybe someday there'll be a better one. And you get to the other side where Trenton's also putting in a trail, right? So it really makes that connection. It's there, so.
Thank you to both, though.
Yeah, Jay, I wouldn't want to actually debate him because he's pretty articulate, so he.
You're saying he's articulate but not right.
he's right. Right. So I think this is a win-win for everybody, and we just try to figure out how to get the second part done.
And I want to go back because I went back to the first. I happened to be at the first meeting with the country club many years ago when this started, and it has gone on for many years. And I would say through this whole thing, the country club has been very good, very courteous about it. The problem up to this point has been that it was one idea. The idea of this path is going through the club, and they said no, no, no. And I fully understand that. You were able to come up with an alternate to that, which makes sense. I do have a couple of questions. The young lady asked about litigation. I would guess, number one, as we know, we are a very litigious society now, and a ball hits somebody, he or she is probably gonna sue if they're gonna sue absolutely everybody they can think of. The township, the individuals in the township, the country club. The real person that's at fault is the golfer. Probably not going to be able to find the golfer that hit the ball that hit them. So that's going to be there no matter what. Putting the path in or not putting the path in. Yes, you're farther away if you're walking on the road, but you're still in harm's way, and the litigation can be there. They have to prove their case. Getting hit isn't the thing. It's proving who did it and who's
Sure,
at fault.
and
So-
that there's harm.
So the litigation is going to be there no matter what, and it could be, they could just sue the township, they could just sue the country club. You never know what they're going to do. So that a specific answer can't be given. Maintenance was asked about, and we didn't really talk about that. And so I'm going to ask you, who's going to maintain this?
So, talking to DLGI, so this, first of all, removing this chunk has a tertiary advantage to the township, which is that it eliminates the retaining walls. And obviously, retaining walls require more maintenance than sidewalk, right? And hopefully, we can find a way to do this without retaining walls. It is possible because there has been engineering drafts without them. But as it stands now, there won't be any retaining walls. There will be sidewalk. DLGI said the lifespan of a sidewalk is anywhere from 25 to 50 years. I know you live in a neighborhood where the sidewalks, I don't know how long they've been there, but because of all the trees, they've got some uneven spots, and there's other spots that are great.
You won't
So,
talk about that. Yeah.
so they told me like 25 to 50 years on sidewalks,
Yeah.
right? We all know what, we've heard year estimates before, right? So I can't guarantee the sidewalk's going to last 25 years or anything. I can tell you that it is concrete. It's being engineered by PEA, which is a very well-regarded firm. That they have notes on there about areas that needs to be strengthened because of particular soil concerns or because it's going over the water's edge driveway and there's going to be heavy vehicle traffic over it. As far as snow removal, I spoke to Derek about that. He told me removing snow along that corridor wouldn't create any kind of significant time delta for the cleaning crews. However, they would need a different brush. BPAC's funds do enable us to purchase maintenance materials and maintenance equipment for the bike trail, and I believe Mr. Keim was coming up with a wish list of brushes. So I don't know if we ever got did we ever get the estimate on that, Derek? Okay, I did some quick searches on it though, and a Bobcat brush isn't going to break BPAC or anything. So, and then of course I think that DLGI kind of hung a carrot a little bit in the verbiage for our action item in that we're still going to partner with you and try to get stuff done. So I think this is just the beginning of us getting involved with them as far as our trail systems go. So.
I assume there's going to be a retaining wall on West River at the hill where there's the practice putting green at Water's Edge.
So I looked at the engineering drafts, and I'll review them again here when I get back to my workstation, but I don't believe there is a retaining wall there.
Really?
What there is a construction easement, I think, so they can smooth that berm out a little bit and not have the retaining wall.
Good.
So.
All right.
See one, Jim, on the plans there.
Okay. And one last question, looking at the motion, has this been run by the Bike Path Commission?
Yes. So we actually drafted the first one. This one has been modified, obviously, since Jay and I have been communicating this weekend. So BPAC made a recommendation to the township board to put a trail there. I don't think removing a section of it necessarily modifies the recommendation to the point that it's no longer valid.
Obviously the concept was there, and they would understand. Okay, we're in negotiation.
Right. Yeah.
Things
But
could
there was
change,
a
but
recommendation.
The overall
by,
concept has been discussed with them.
Yes. Yep.
So because I didn't see that the recommendation was coming from BPAC.
It did. It was in the original verbiage, but I think when we modified it to include some of the stipulations,
Since it hadn't
got.
been. That's fine. I just wondered about.
But there was a recommendation on November 22nd from BPAC, the night before Thanksgiving, actually.
All right, great. That's all I have.
I have a couple of matters. Jameson, the issues for me have always been cost and safety. And for me, I was looking at the cost for the retaining walls that would be necessary along the 9th fairway, if you will. You have undulations where there is a rather steep drop below the road level. And then you have, when you come up to the sledding hill, there's another embankment there where you're above the road level, and then you drop down again. And we've all, I think most of us have used that hill at one point or another when we were much younger. I note that there are no present embankments that have retaining walls there. So I think you are probably correct when you look at what you can do with water's edge. You're not going to have to go through the expense of maintaining those things, and retaining walls are going to last a lot less time than will a sidewalk. So I really, really think that this is a very cost-effective matter. I also look at West River. I have avoided bicycling on West River for years because the sight distance all along the water's edge property from basically the fourth hole down to the first green, all along the boat club is terrible.
It's
a
a
very
brave
short
spot to cycle.
You move a little faster when you're going through there.
Yeah,
But
for
then when
sure.
you come up on the intersection on West River and Bellevue, you have the same problem because of the tight sight distances, the tight distance to the road there. So I am absolutely thrilled about this. Jim mentioned the meeting with the country club. I believe that was 2 years ago, Jim, you and I and Brian Pawlik and John Paul sat down there in the formal dining room and were told, no, we're not going to do this because, and I look at this, you've answered my safety questions, you've answered my cost questions. I don't know how everybody was able to come to the same page on this, but Jay and Tim, and both you gentlemen on their board, I'm looking for another board member there. I understand we walked in together tonight, met for the first time. This is I think, a win-win for everybody. I'm big on safety. That's why the last path that we put over there is on the very east side of the airport. It's gravel. There's separation with another terrible length of road along East River between the Wildlife Center and Grow Road. Was an accident waiting for a place to happen. This is the same thing that's been going on along Water's Edge there. You have people that come up from the marina. I want to say thank you to the board. I want to say thank you to the president, and I think the vice president. And Jameson, I want to say thank you for making this possible. When we originally looked 2 years ago at what the options were, we had Douglas, which is that platted but never going to be built road with utility lines, not far from your house, between Heikkuri and Groseal Parkway. A lot of people there, in the cost to traverse that wetland area was well over $1 million. That was rejected because of the cost. I look at the potential to put the path on the north side of Groseal Parkway or on the south side of Groseal Parkway as an adjacent strip to the existing pavement there. And I remember Pete Darsnick said that he'd been running radar and had seen at least one vehicle doing 80 miles an hour there. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. I've had a client who lost his 7-year-old child on 7 Mile because they hit a pothole and fell out into the road. I don't ever want to see that happen here. And she was 7 years old. Wow. And that was 20 years ago. I think this is a win-win for everybody with savings. In terms of the brush, I understand John Keim has already looked into that before, and you mentioned tonight. I think it's an easy solution. I believe that this is a win-win for everybody, and I think with the materials now that you can put on embankments to hold the dirt back, you're not going to have to do those retaining walls.
Yeah, and I think the other advantage too, right, is that you can mow an embankment. You can't mow a retaining wall, right? So, and I kept thinking, like, man, if I might be down there 15 years from now weeding a retaining wall, right, and eating my shoe, you know. So I'm glad that we managed to find a positive solution here. So
I do have just one question. Mr. Frucci, I understand that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I understand that Groseal Golf and Country Club has been maintaining the control of the weeds and the grass along Bellevue that fronts on both sides of the golf course. Is that correct? Yes. I'm assuming you're going to continue to do that? Very good. Thank you. That's all I have. And again, bottom of my heart, thank you, Jameson, and thank you to the Groseal Country Club board.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Yes. Uda. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Jameson.
Questions asked by the community. Let me just pull them back up. Well, did someone else have a question in the meantime while my computer loads?
I would say, in all fairness, I received this weekend alone 10 emails that said no, no, no. In fact, they were all no's. So there, I mean, like any other issue on this island, there is not one answer. There is not 100% on anything. You're going to have people for and against. Quite frankly, I know that, had there not been this alternative, I'm sure that the Groseal Country Club would be a no. I'm glad we could come up with an alternative to make it palatable to everyone.
So I think the only two questions, I feel like I answered the maintenance question, and you can see it in our draft legislation. Specifically states Groseal Township is responsible for maintenance. But I know Margaret Sheldon had a question concerning future maintenance. So the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee does have a current grant millage to maintain the bike trails we already have established. What we don't have is a millage to create new bike trails, right? So, and in the tax environment that Margaret mentioned, it's probably not a great time for us to ask the community for more taxes to build more bike trails, right? So what we already have though is a bike maintenance fund that can't be diverted to any bike trail maintenance fund that can't be diverted to any other item, right? Because it's a taxpayer millage. The taxpayers decided to pay money for trail maintenance. So the only way we can get new bike trails, at least in this current era of government, would be through grant systems like the one we're working with now. But we do have sufficient funds that are dedicated by voter millage to maintain the trail. And I honestly think it's going to be very little maintenance without the retaining walls, and hopefully we can get to a phase 2 someday that also doesn't have retaining walls. So I hope that answers your question, Margaret. That's all I have.
All right. Yes, Uda.
Well, so as a board member sitting here, having discussed this project over the years a couple of times, I feel like I've gone back and forth. For, against. I just, before we take a vote, very particular kitchen cabinet kind of discussion I had with my husband, who says, "What do you mean you've got concerns? I just signed the petition that Jane had out there." So, we talked about some of the pros and cons at our last meeting, and I do hope that in pursuit of a phase 2, we look at the possibility, as you mentioned, about closing off a portion of Bellevue to create a pedestrian zone where it's possible that first responders could still get through if necessary, but say from driveway to driveway, the one furthest west from the country club to the one furthest east from Water's Edge, that section, a large part of which has been taken out of this equation, be turned into that kind of a pedestrian zone. I've seen it in other countries. I've seen it in other cities in the U.S., and yet it would take away the concern that an ambulance or a fire truck couldn't get through. So I'm hoping that those are some things that we would look at that maybe wouldn't involve any additional construction, just then maintenance of that roadway as a pedestrian path. So I have once again pivoted, and I do like what you've come up with. I love the fact that two sides can come together. Brian did come talk to the Rec Commission on Thursday. I think that was also very helpful. So I think that this is a very nice way to build community consensus and continue looking for options moving forward.
Yeah, I think a linear park for that section from that we didn't pave would be phenomenal. If we could get there, maybe we can. But I do want to also thank the board of the country club, not just Mr. Frucci, who has been their representative, but I do appreciate everybody coming to the table. And I know I forced you to talk to your president probably several times yesterday, and I appreciate you doing so to get us to the table today. So
Very good. So, we have a motion that the Groseal Township Board hereby authorizes the Downriver Links Greenways, DLG, Friends of Detroit River, and Wayne County to proceed with sidewalk and crosswalk construction on Bellevue, Meridian, and West River Road based on the attached plans with modifications to the path design, which eliminates the portion of the path along the Groseal Golf and Country Club as shown in the attached diagrams. Areas eliminated in this section between the red marks. Approval includes authorization for construction easements on Water's Edge Township property at the corners of West River Road at Bellevue and Groseal Parkway. The township understands construction will include grade improvements and removal of a stairway on the western edge of the Water's Edge property. 2, permission to the Downriver Links Greenway, Friends of Detroit, and Wayne County to replace arborvitae along West River Road and Bellevue within golf course property if needed. Furthermore, the Groseal Township Board recognizes the following. Groseal Township does not share in any construction cost as designed. Reaffirms the understanding that sidewalk, once complete, will belong to Groseal Township and will be maintained by Groseal Township without direct funding from DLG. And understands that while DLG makes no guarantees for future funding for maintenance, they will continue to be a resource and partner following construction. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. The bike path for Bellevue is passed. Thank you again, Groseal Country Club, for your help and work on this. Okay. Number 2, action item number 2 was deleted. As we know, Bellevue Bike Path was number 3. Action item number 4, false alarm ordinance, was deleted. So, Uta, that brings us to action item number 5, approval of new restaurant lease agreement.
Do we want to give people a moment to vacate?
Sure,
Thank you.
if you wish to do so.
So as liaison for the Community Recreation Commission, I am bringing to you a recommendation to move forward and approve the final restaurant lease agreement draft for the Tipsy Fish as new tenants at Water's Edge Complex restaurant site.
Second.
Thank you. The Tipsy Fish is a new restaurant entity that the Community Recreation Commission and its members have been looking toward to take over as tenants at the Water's Edge complex under a 5-year lease. The prospective tenants currently own Mr. Nick's Restaurant and Bar in Trenton, Michigan. We believe that they will be ready to open around February, March 2024. The new tenants, if this agreement is approved, will be taking over responsibility of the monthly restaurant lease payments, as well as 65% of the monthly gas and water payments for Water's Edge Complex building. And the commission is working diligently with, would be working diligently with the new vendor in order to make sure that the tenants of the agreement would be maintained and moving forward, that things don't fall into a bad pattern, let's put it that way. We gave you a final draft that has been reviewed by our legal counsel. The final draft was presented to the Rec Commission on last Thursday, and the commission voted on and approved this, bringing it to your board last Thursday. So we really didn't have a final draft to share with you until Friday. That you did not receive it sooner, I apologize. Derek was also so kind because I think we also did not include attachment A and B. Attachment A is a list of the existing equipment. Attachment B is a list of equipment to be purchased by Grosse Ile. One of the things that the commission dealt with in going out in this RFP is we only had 3 applicants. Only one applicant actually had their own liquor license. In the process of the last 2 years, the township was trying very hard to get a liquor license in the name of the township because as a municipal entity with a golf course, we could actually go out and have our own liquor license that we can then allow a vendor, a tenant to use. As you know, that took a long time to get that approval. A lot of bureaucracy, and we finally did get that approval earlier this year. I know there's several of you that have some questions, and I don't want to blather on here. Derek does have more information that he can give us in the presentation, in particular the details of the lease agreement. For the first time, we have escalators in the lease agreement in years 3 and 5, which hadn't existed before. So I think we felt like we did a very good process, at least moving forward with this vendor. So I'm going to give over to Derek.
Hopefully the board has had the opportunity to read through the agreement. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. I think Uta did a nice job of summarizing the major points of the agreement. It's a 5-year term. Initial rent is $3,000 a month, which is actually the same amount as the current tenant is paying. There is a participant agreement that the township will have to approve and the state will have to approve that would allow the use of the liquor license, the township's liquor license, by the tenant. So that would still have to happen if this lease is approved so that they could use that liquor license. But there are drafts of that the state provides, and hopefully legal could put that together fairly easily. So I don't see that being a major issue to that happening. But that is an additional step that would have to happen. So with that, any questions you might have, I'll try to answer those the best I can. Also, I believe the chairman of the Recreation Commission is here as well, Chad, who has been involved in various steps of the process of the negotiation. So,
questions?
I mean, I have a comment. I know I talked to Zaid about this and Uda about this, and sometimes you got to spend a little money to make money, and change is inevitable and sometimes good. So I think I think this is a small investment to make, and I realize the rent isn't super high, right? Grosse Ile Township isn't gonna, I don't know, pay off all of our bonds on the back of whatever restaurateur comes in there, the Tipsy Fish, but it's all part of a system, right? Like the trail, the restaurant, Water's Edge, the marina, let's keep moving the ball forward, master plan and everything else, and get to the point where that's a premier facility down there, attracting people from off island, and cars, boats, bikes, whatever. Come on over, get a burger and a beer, right? So I'm with you, Uda.
Thank you. Jameson, you bring up a good point, too. Part of this agreement that I think is different in spirit, and especially talking with the future tenant or proposed tenant, is that there is a real desire to make this a year-round destination for the island, not just a club, something for the pool, something for the golfers, something for the basketball courts or so, but that they're really going to try to draw people to just come to the Tipsy Fish. It's one of the few places downriver where you can sit on the water and watch the sunset and have a meal and a drink and sit in a even looking at the power plant, it's still a really cool sunset. So, and that will be gone in a couple of years. But bottom line is, Water's Edge has not always had a great success drawing a lot of people in to want to open a restaurant there. And we have a proposal that meets the goals of the commission, of the department, and gives us steps moving forward to continue building on it. There are things in here maybe that we wanted more of, like a percentage of the liquor sales or so forth. And those are things to think for the future. I think right now we need to get a tenant in there who can get established and actually make the place work, and then move from there.
Eric, I got a couple of questions. Why 5 years? And not 3? Or, I mean, it seems like a fairly lengthy.
In the negotiations that I was part of in the initial steps, I think the 5-year term was preferred by the tenant because their plan was to make some investments over the first 2-3 years of the agreement in order to, benefit from those investments that they were planning on making, in order to establish the business and really have a future. As far as moving into the future, some stability with the business model, knowing that they have an agreement that is longer than just maybe a 2 or 3 year agreement, where they know that they have tenancy that is guaranteed for that period of time, assuming they meet the the requirements of the agreement is essential for their business stability, I guess. So those two things, I think the investments and then also the stability of the business moving forward.
Okay. Excuse me. In paragraph 3 says late fees on the rent, or the rent's due on the 10th day, and oh, maybe that is taken care of. Okay. There's a provision in here that says, subject to approval by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission of the permit, the participation permit, the township will maintain control and responsibility for Tipsy Fish and its employees as it relates to the Liquor Control Code and administrative rules.
What paragraph? Are you looking at?
I'm sorry, paragraph 9B, page 3. It seems to infer, and I'm inferring, that it puts some liability on the township for the actions of the people as it relates to the liquor license?
I don't believe that's the intent. I believe this is within the participation agreement. It basically, we're subrogating the authority of the liquor license to the Tipsy Fish. So I think the verbiage in there,
more of a
subrogation of that license ability, basically, or use of that license.
Not relieving them of any responsibility.
Correct. Yep.
From taking it on
Yep.
us.
And you'll see elsewhere in the agreement, it speaks to the insurance requirements,
right,
and the liability of the servers and that type of thing, and it puts it all on that organization. In addition, there were a lot of conversations between our insurance provider and our attorney about liability, them carrying the necessary liability insurance without us having to take on that responsibility. I do know that we probably will carry some additional liability coverage because of that potential with the liquor license being used, but our broker has assured us that will be at a very minimal, if not any additional cost. So we will probably bind some additional coverage.
More is better in
Yep,
that case.
Exactly.
I'm a little concerned. I think I understand why. The list of new equipment totals, give or take 30 grand. Is this equipment that should have been there anyway? Or is this?
This is equipment that was there or is there that is in, for the most part, is in need of replacement.
Okay, so this isn't new equipment to satisfy the needs
Correct.
of the new tenant.
Correct. It's not new equipment that's necessary for their tenancy or their specific type
All right.
of operations. This is more or less replacements of existing equipment that is either extended beyond its useful life or is in such poor condition that replacement is preferred to repair just because it's exceeded its longevity.
And regardless of who is there, we would be responsible for that. You know, if we want a restaurant there, we would have to provide that equipment, unless
It's negotiated into the agreement. Like, for example, there are some items that the tenant is purchasing that could be determined to be important for any restaurateur to have, but under the arrangement, under this lease agreement, they are responsible for some of that equipment.
Okay. On item 11G, and this is really just a question. Paragraph 1 under section G, or 11G1. It says the township, the receipt of a Class C liquor license. I always thought a Class C liquor license was beer and wine only.
I don't know off the top of my head. I can double check into that, it should reflect whatever liquor license that we have. My understanding of our liquor license, it was
It's a full
liquor license,
liquor
unrestricted.
license,
It
yeah.
wasn't just beer and wine.
I always thought Class C, that designation was.
Yeah,
So I don't know, that maybe.
I apologize. I'm not up to
That's-
speed on
no.
where but we'll double check
You're
that
not
and make sure it reflects what we actually have.
You don't have a liquor license at
No,
your
I
house?
don't.
And okay, I guess that's taken care of. Oh. There's a provision, page 7, paragraph 16, captioned "right to inspect." It says that the township can make, township shall have the right to make repairs that operator may neglect or refuse to make in accordance with the provisions of this agreement, provided we've given them correct notice that the repairs need to be done. So it says, again, what I'm reading there, it says, we tell the tenant he needs to do this. He says, I'm not doing it. Or he just forgets and doesn't do it. So we go in and do it, and there's no provision there for reimbursement of the cost.
Yes, that's a valid point. It should have some sort of provision for recouping of that expense.
Yeah,
Yes.
right, okay. And if you, I just want to make sure, and it would be in 12B, that that language is sufficient. I just, if verify it somehow, that's sufficient to remove, well, township's never removed from all liability, I guess, but that we are as covered as we can be from liability and the result of failure to abide by
Kristen
MLCs.
reviewed this.
She did, yeah, on multiple
The
occasions.
attorney reviewed.
Yeah, I know.
So,
And there, I do recall there was some back and forth on this between her and the recreation director about, the responsibility of the operator with regards to serving and their standards that they're held to, and making sure that we, weren't on the hook if they should, operate their business and operate the liquor sales in a way that was contrary to what the state licensing allowed for. So I know that was it was a topic of conversation quite a bit. So I would be confident that that verbiage is accurate.
Okay. There's I can give it to you tomorrow. It's on somewhere on page 12. There's a typo. It refers to section 20. It refers to section 25, and it should be 24. And I can't.
24B. Operator's obligation to reimburse township under this section 24.
Where it says section 25, and we're in section 24. And then I got all my little comments out of the way. And, my real question is, why is there no lease payments for use of the liquor license?
The topic was brought up during the negotiations that I was part of. I think initially when the township had reviewed procuring a liquor license for this facility, there were two priorities. The first one being the potential to maybe return some of that revenue back to the township to allow for the investment in the facility. The golf course needs work, the pool needs work, the whole facility, on a regular basis can use investment, right? And those fees would help with that. So that was priority one, I think, with trying to achieve the liquor license, and probably equal to, if not even maybe a greater priority, was, a lot of the feedback we as a township had received when we tried to find an operator for that facility was the liquor license was always a hindrance to interest. Trying to obtain one, first of all, the township has a set number of liquor licenses. A private business cannot just obtain one if one is not available unless they go to the open market and pull one from somewhere else in the county. And that is cost prohibitive. The current operator does have a liquor license that would potentially be an option to purchase it from them, as has been the case in the past, but there's no guarantee that that tenant or any other tenant would be interested in selling it to a new tenant coming in. So it was always a precarious position, some unsurety as to whether or not a new operator could obtain a liquor license, and then obviously the financial burden of that. That was further emphasized, I think, when the Recreation Commission went and bid out or went to the market to find an operator for that facility. 2 of the 3 that applied said, I'm only interested if a liquor license is supplied by the township or is provided by the township. So I think that obtaining that license did achieve one of those priorities, and that was to garner additional interest that wouldn't have been there if that wasn't an option. The first point, the share, was brought up during those lease negotiations. Was indicated to the tenant that was a priority of the township, and the preference, I believe, was to, rather than enter into an arrangement that provided for that, the preference of the tenant, the potential tenant, was to utilize some of those dollars to reinvest into the facility. And that's where you see in the lease agreement some of the things that they are offering to do in the agreement, had been negotiated to do. in
1
the
year,
agreement.
2.
Yep, exactly. Things that they feel would help not only their business, but also help the facility. So that was their offering in lieu of either a percentage or some sort of increased rent amount in order to accommodate for that benefit. So,
The items that they've committed to do in this contract, year 1, year 2, I think, and year 3, and maybe another one. There's no requirement that they do them.
there is a penalty if they don't.
Oh, yeah, the rent goes up a tick.
Right, yes, yeah.
I mean, to me,
With the lease arrangements, you're always looking at what is the penalty if there's not compliance, right? So in this case here.
loss of the lease.
Right. Well, that's always an option, but if you're making certain allowances for rent concessions, your priority is for them to do what you're asking them to do.
Right.
Right. You've entered in that agreement in good faith that we understand this is a benefit to us. We understand it's a benefit to you. You both parties want to see that happen. If one defaults on that, you can always kick that person out, but you're not recouping any of that credit that you had extended, per se, over that life of however long they were there. So in this case here, like you had mentioned, the penalty would either be eviction or I think it's a 5% or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there is a rent increase that kicks up at that point if it's not accomplished.
Right.
But I don't know. And not that I have any reason to say they're not going to complete whatever they say they're going to complete.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not looking out necessarily for his best interests.
Sure. And that's not our job here at the township to look out necessarily for their best interest. We're trying to craft out the best arrangement, for us and for that complex. So I think you're looking at it properly, trying to find the best arrangement, the best deal for the township. These are the terms and conditions that were negotiated, based upon what, the tenant was willing to offer and what I believe the recreation department feels is an arrangement that works for them as well. So.
Okay. Thanks, Derek.
Yep.
All right, I have some questions also. What kind of homework did we do before we went into negotiation to figure out what we wanted? Because I look at a lot of this stuff, and a lot of it is just the same as what we've had year after year after year. So I'm wondering, especially, and my big hang-up with this lease is zero value for that liquor license. And them making improvements has nothing to do with our liquor license and the value of that liquor license. That's my big hang-up on this. But in looking at the other things in there, I get the impression, and I know that the information of the past lessee was put out to them prior to negotiations, which is just ridiculous to do. It undermines our negotiating power. But what exactly did we do to sit down and say, you know what, we need, and I'm just throwing this out, we need $3,500 a month for the lease, and we need $500 a month for the liquor license, because by God, that liquor license is going to bring in a whole lot of their gross revenue. And I look at this, and it looks like we just let them come to us and say, here's what we're going to give you. And that gives me pause. So my first question is, what did we do to come to what ends up in here, or was it all just force-fed to us?
No, I think that there was a significant amount of conversation, maybe not necessarily relative to the rent amount, but there was a significant amount of conversation leading up to the consideration of proposals and the things that the recreation department has experienced over time with that facility. Concerns about, how operators, work there, what issues arise. You know, a good example is the bathrooms. The bathrooms have always been an issue. You see that there's additional verbiage within the contract, different verbiage than what had been in there in the past, because that had been a problem. So I believe before Kim had left, before she departed, there were a lot of conversations and brainstorming within the recreation department of, based upon her history and her experiences, what things needed to be in the next lease. And I think I was part of a couple of those conversations. Uta was part of a number of those conversations, and quite a few members of the recreation department were part of those conversations, as well as the previous director. So I think those previous examples, those previous experiences kind of shaped some of the terminology in here to address some of those issues. To speak to the rent amount, I think, to answer your question, frankly, the bidding process, I think was relied on in order to determine what the market rate was for that facility. So there were 3 bids that were received. Current operator had offered $3,000 a month. This operator offered $3,000 a month with the liquor license, and there was a third third proposal for $2,500 a month with the liquor license as well. No offering for any kind of liquor share in any of those proposals. Obviously, the first one with the current operator, they had their own. So I guess an argument could be made that the market set the rate through a public bid in which all potential suitors were able to put in for the tenancy in that facility. If there was a proposal for $4,500 a month with 25% liquor license share, that didn't come to fruition. It wasn't put out there. Obviously we'd be considering probably that proposal right now if the market determined that was the value of that.
But when we went out for our RFP, we left it up to them.
Correct.
To tell us. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Why no escalator the first 2, the escalators, and we did it with other contracts in the township. Why no escalator until the 3rd year, where things are going up? 3rd year, and then the 5th year are the only escalators. The 3rd year, the escalator is done. It stays the same for the
yes.
4th year.
I was reading it as 4th and 5th year, but you're right. It stays the same 3rd and 4th year.
The 3rd and 4th year are the same, and then the 5th year, it's another bump. Why didn't we get an escalator every year?
I can't speak to the reasoning behind that. Obviously, from the township standpoint, you'd like to see something go up every year because inflation goes up every year. My assumption is that was a point that was negotiated to the point where it was a compromise or something along those lines.
So we really don't know whether that was just told to us, whether that was given to us by them, or whether we actually discussed it.
Yeah, I think when I was part of the initial conversations, it was indicated to the tenant that we would like to see an annual escalator. So and that priority was put out there because once again that was another item that didn't exist in the previous contract, which was kind of a sore spot, as was other contracts.
Well,
we have in the
in all fairness, we've had contracts in the past that on paper looked very good, and then we never enforced.
Sure.
So and unfortunately, I've had to live through that, and yes, it makes me very mad that even when we have a good contract, we don't bother enforcing it. We let that other person tell us what to do, and that should be unacceptable to us.
Just quickly on the escalator, the Centennial Farm at least escalator doesn't kick in until year 3 too. So,
but I'm talking about this one.
I understand.
So we have that, and then why 2 months free?
I think that is because my understanding is that they will not be open. They'll just be strictly doing investment. They'll be doing modifications to the building. So
will they be using our property?
Yes, they would be using. But I'm assuming it's while they're not open. So that would be my guess.
You're right.
Once again, I wasn't part of that.
Do we really care whether they ever open as long as they pay us our lease? I mean, in actuality, that's what we're doing. We're leasing this property. We want to get our lease payment, whatever it's going to be. It's theirs to do what they want.
I mean, that's not what anybody sitting at the other end of this table said during the Luton's lease agreement. It was all like, this is part of the community, and we really care about this thing, and, rent escalators are necessary. Let's do it. We kind of take care of this institution here in Grosse Ile. Well, that's the same thing we're doing here, right?
Well,
There were a lot of issues with that.
And the reason I bring this all up is because rec, just like everybody else, is always asking for more money. And they have the ability to do it here, and they have passed on a number of things. But that's fine, you've answered those questions. Number 6.
But
Number 6.
all due respect, I do want to say that there were tough negotiations going on, and that also the track record of that facility doesn't speak very highly of us being able to do some of the things you're asking us to do. We're hoping and we're working with the new vendor to create that facility that will enable it to grow, not just for the vendor, but for us.
But it's because.
It has to start somewhere.
Well,
and we
well,
are not,
Ed,
if you look at the facility, we are not in a position to really push hard until we get somebody who gets established. That's I think,
well,
where we're coming
where
from.
you bring, well, and I'll get to established later on, because we probably didn't look into it. But issue number 6, or item number 6 in the lease talks about late charges. And it states in there, late fee in the amount of 5% of the amount of the late license fee payment, and they state in there it's going to be $150, which is what the 5% works out to. It contradicts paragraph number 5 that could in fact up that license fee. So there should, that language should reflect, it should be 5% of the late license fee, not and leave the dollar amount out, because that license fee can fluctuate. And it can go up because of other things that are thrown in to make, instead of $3,000, it could be $4,000. They're only going to pay a fee on 3.
Right.
So that's just a little contradiction. 10C, dealing with utilities. It states 65%. I just wondered, that's what we've had. Did we actually go back and review that to see if 65 is still a proper percentage? Or did we just take what we had?
No, I think we took what we had, but I don't think that the building necessarily has changed in its split or something along those lines. You know, there's a certain percentage of that building that's being used for recreation, a certain percentage of that building that's being used for the restaurant.
Yeah, but the fee was based on trying to figure out how much of the utilities were used, and that's how 65 was.
But the problem is there isn't separate meters.
No, there isn't.
Right.
So they did.
Square footage.
So they came up with something.
Right.
And I just wondered if it had been rehashed.
No, it has not.
Okay, that was my question. Okay. 11A, paragraph 2, Township shall maintain the HVAC and related ductwork. Township shall install a makeup air system. Have they done that?
It's currently, I think the bid spec's been formulated. It's going to go to bid, with bids being due, I believe, in January.
Okay.
So they're in the process.
Okay, well,
Yes.
the reason I ask is because it has to be done before the agreement, before commencement of the agreement.
Yeah,
So when's the
really should be,
commencement of agreement?
within a certain period of time that's reasonable. So that really, it's a valid point.
It's gonna be okay.
It should be, it should be adjusted to reflect within a couple of months of occupancy or something like
Okay.
that. Because the reality of it is, I believe.
And that's fine. It just, I didn't want it to start off where we're already in default.
Not in compliance. I think
Right.
that the completion date that he had in his bid spec, I think, was March 1st.
Okay.
So, it should be modified to reflect, let's just say 3 months after occupancy or something along those lines. It's a valid point.
All right. 11F, last paragraph. The very last paragraph, it's not a numbered paragraph. Operator shall not be entitled to remove any improvements. If they fail to complete the listed improvements as agreed to, the annual increase in license fee provided in Section 3 shall be increased by 5% for the year following.
Should be paragraph 3.
Well, what,
Or section 3 is correct, yeah, I'm sorry.
what, Section 3 also talks about a 3%, I think, increase. What my question is that 5% on the base, or is that 5% on the increase in?
It's 5%. I read it as 5% on whatever he paid last month.
Right.
So it would include the 3%?
includes it all.
Or whatever the stuff, okay, I did not read it that, I didn't think it was clear, but that's okay, that's good. Well, all right, then, and I'll just mention again, 12D, by God, a good portion of his revenue is coming from liquor sales. And we literally are getting nothing for that liquor license, which I find offensive, quite truthfully. As hard as we worked, and the purpose was twofold. It wasn't one or the other. It was twofold. Number one, we knew, hey, if we can offer a new guy coming in a liquor license where he doesn't have to go out and spend $80,000 or $90,000 to buy one, that'd be a selling point. And then obviously, because so much of the revenue in this type of operation comes from liquor, it's of value to us. And I'm sorry, but this lease gives us no value for that liquor license. None at all. His improvements, which everybody does when they come into an establishment, makes leasehold improvements, and by God, they get to write those off and they get the tax break on them. It's not our business to be into their leasehold improvements and what they do. I just really have trouble with this agreement, with us getting nothing for that liquor license. We're giving them, for 5 years, we're giving them that liquor license. And I don't know how we can do that. Why the hell did we bother going and getting the darn thing? It was a revenue thing, which rec always needs revenue, and this is a perfect thing. And I don't know how we were talked into not getting anything for it. So that I do have a big problem with. And then finally, I did notice, looking at the end of the agreement, signed by us, which can be normal, but we have somebody coming in here, and we have had the problem in the past of people not paying their bills, and I noticed that we didn't get any personal guarantees, which we had in the prior lease. And so my question is, with us not getting the personal guarantees, what kind of capitalization does that corporation have that we know that they can pay their bills? Did we look at that?
Yeah, if I recall early on, that the operator did provide financial documents that showed their position. I can't recall off the top of my head what that was, but from what I recall, they were in a good position. They had assets. to be able to comply with.
And that's, when you say they had assets, we're talking about Tipsy Fish. We're not talking about their other business.
It's true that it's a new business. It's a new.
So did we look at their Tipsy Fish's capitalization, because they're the only ones that are going to owe us money?
Yeah. The financials that I believe were presented were for other businesses or other cash positions.
So
versus this new endeavor.
right. So we're pretty much in the same position we've always been in with these people coming in, that we don't know if we can get paid, and we know the first person, when they can't pay their bills, that they stop paying is us. And having that experience, that is what we should be getting out of, not staying in. And and I have experience in doing this, and you just don't put yourself in that position. There's no reason to. You're here, you're at the beginning, you can ask for this stuff, and rightfully so. They want to protect their position. I have no problem with any of that. They should. But we should be protecting ours too. And I don't see that here. Yes, we in every lease that we've gone into in that facility, we've always been at their call rather than us being in the position. And in fact, the first person that was in there, or company that was in there, we literally let go, and they were paying the most of anybody has in years. We let them go because they had the gall to ask for a reduction in lease for 2 months, which is January, February, when we all know is slow. And we went from, we basically have since cut the lease rate in half, even though we were getting double in the beginning. It makes no sense to me. I understand if you haven't had the same experience I have, you're not going to understand what I'm saying. And we're all about, we got to get a guy in, we got to get a guy in. Well, we can get people in. We've never had that problem. The problem is keeping them, and us not having to hold the bag when they can't perform. So I have a problem mainly with my big problem is with getting zero for that liquor license. But also we should have learned our lesson by now to see that they are well capitalized, that they can meet their obligations for 5 years. And we don't have anything, so I'm disappointed in that. And that's all I got to say. Other questions? If not,
Oh, no, I
if
was
not,
just going to say, your view was made very clear. Does anyone else want to say anything, or?
are you?
No,
well,
I'm not running the meeting.
I'm kidding you. I'm kidding you.
I mean, I
I
do.
figured they might have a question for
Well,
me.
that's what I asked.
I mean, I do think it's important to bring up Centennial Farm because I feel like a lot of the concerns that were brought up were ones that I brought up around Centennial Farm. And for me, the key difference between Centennial Farm and this is we did go out for RFP on this, and we got very clear, I feel, indication that there was not a lot of competition for this spot. And in terms of a lot of the questions that were asked, they were very clear when they came to us. They said, $3,000 a month with a liquor license. So that's why that's where the negotiations started, I feel. And it did take, I think last time it took some time before a new operator come in. So there is a risk of not having an operator there. And so, yeah, in general, I'm in favor of this. Would I want more? Would I want more guarantees? Of course, but I think this is an opportunity to start fresh. I'm excited about it. I've told other folks I have nostalgic feelings towards the current tenant, and I understand why it's important to think of a new one because there's been challenges and continue to have been. So I'm excited to start fresh with this new lease, I'm glad the concerns are brought up, but I feel confident in it as a next step, and hopeful that in 5 years that we will be in a better negotiating position than we were with this, which I don't feel like we were. So I'm glad we went out for RFP because we got to know that and see that, and that's why I feel confident in supporting this one.
Good, yeah, I agree, starting fresh, and I look at this lease and we're not starting fresh, we're doing the same thing, so. But that's my view, simple as that. So if we're ready to, wait a minute, we have a finger up.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say, I appreciate all the comments that were made by both you and Dave, and Derek and I took good notes. I think that some of your concerns about the language will be addressed before signature, and our resolution should maybe reflect that.
I was just gonna say that when I read the motion with how should I refer to them, as cosmetic? I mean, they were like, change.
Modifications of verbiage as suggested at the meeting
Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah, that should be in there for
There's
those
some
things.
typos I have.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, so that would cover it, modification of the verbiage. So,
All right, and then I did want to say too, Jim, I appreciate the amount of time and effort you put into your review and the concerns that you have in defense of the negotiation team and the rec commission, though. There were many times where we did ask for something forward, but the answer was no. So when you're in a negotiation, you may go forward and ask for things that aren't there or that you want, but the other party can always tell you no. And so you regroup and you try to get the best that you can.
well, and you should, but
And-
along those lines, you don't take their no and say, we just have to have somebody in there. If it doesn't work out for us, if it becomes, I mean, we're talking about spending $30,000+ on equipment, which that was the other thing we should be getting out of the equipment business. But
we own the facility. They
We
can
own the
never-
facility, but not
They
the-
can never own the facility.
But the equipment we don't have to own. They can bring their equipment in. What I'm saying is, we have $30,000. If we got a couple $100 a month for liquor license, that'd go a long way to helping on that. Basically our first year of lease is gonna go to pay off our equipment. We're getting nothing. So the rec is getting nothing for that. And those are the things that you have to look at. Enough, I think, being said. We'll vote on this. And so we have a motion, and there are no more statements, comments? Okay. We have a motion to vote to move forward and approve the final restaurant lease agreement with the Tipsy Fish as new tenants at Water's Edge Complex restaurant site with modification to the verbiage
As discussed
at our meeting.
December 11th.
December 11th.
Does that need a new second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. That passes 6-1. We can go forward. Certainly, like any new person coming or new company coming in, we certainly wish them well. We certainly hope everything works out. We always do. And welcome aboard, Tipsy Fish.
Tipsy Fish.
Does anybody know how they got that name?
Yes, we do, but we're sworn to secrecy.
Oh, okay, all right. I6, nay. Okay, very good, and that is.
I want to thank everybody for the very good discussion, for your comments, for your participation in this process. I want to thank our new rec director, Zaid, because he also brought in a new perspective, and he's watching our assistant director, Ash, as well.
Hi, Zaid.
This was a real group effort, and we're very excited, and we're not going to let our foot off the gas. We're excited about this.
All right, thank you, Uda. Thank you. And Chad, thank you for your help on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Soon enough.
All right. All right, and that brings us to our last action item, which is action item number 6. David, if you would.
Groseal Township Board hereby authorizes a budget adjustment for the Community Development Department, which transfers funds from GL number 1010-371-708.000, part-time temp, to GL number 1010-371-727.000, supplies departmental, in the amount of $6,056.25.
Support.
Okay, what this is.
You want Derek to do it, or do
Oh, I
you
know,
want to do it?
it's a budget adjustment, with transfer, they had a part-time employee who was dismissed. There was funds left over in that part-time temp,
Account.
general ledger account. And so now, Ross would like to take that and move that money into, another account, supplies account, and that will let them buy some additional equipment from BS&A for online permitting, which will be hopefully help improve service on the customer side and the
Well,
applicant side.
Yeah, I know it'll help internally
Yeah, well,
because it'll be more
right.
computerized instead of manualized. Derek, do you have anything to add?
You probably
It's pretty
haven't seen something like
straightforward.
this in the past a ton. Our new finance director, one of her priorities is to make sure that budget amendments are done before the expenditures are taken on. So you will see an action item moving forward with the purchase because it's over the dollar amount, but to make sure that the money is available in the correct account, we want to do these mid-year or throughout the year rather than at the end of the year. And to further extrapolate on what you had mentioned, this is for a BS&A program for permitting. We do most of our permitting right now manually with cards. This will allow residents to be able to do application online and streamline and kind of bring it up to the modern age as far as how we do our permitting system. So, and BS&A is the program we use for a lot of different things. The base. This is just a different module for it. So that's all I have.
Well, I was going to ask that why this specific budget adjustment when I haven't seen that before, so I'm really happy we're doing this. Thank you for explaining that.
All right, any other comments or questions regarding it? It's pretty straightforward. Hearing none, we have a motion. We have a motion that the Township Board hereby authorize the budget adjustment for the Community Development Department, which transfers funds from GL number 1010-371-708.00, part-time temp, to GL number 1010-371-727.000, supplies departmental, in the amount of $6,056.25. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ross, if you're watching, you can move your money. And with that, that ends our action items. Public comment. I can't.
Nobody there, but
Nobody
you know-
there.
Greg's going.
You know Greg is coming up.
Well, and Greg is always so polite because he allows the people I can't see to come up first. So, thank you, Greg.
This was a good meeting tonight. This is really good dialogue, good facts, good discussion, good questions. Compliment the board on the meeting tonight.
Microphone.
Yeah.
We want to hear it all again anyway,
And,
Greg.
Again,
A good meeting.
I think the questions and the dialogue was good. I did want to, is this done?
Oh, well, that helps.
No, just keep going. You're
Okay.
fine.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Couple of things. On the budget amendment, great to see that. That was in fact something that a group of us brought up last year. Grosse Taxpayer Association had mentioned that, in the past, we haven't seen budget amendments, and that was a good thing. I think that's exactly the right way to do it. That's the way the Michigan Department of Treasury recommends that you do it, and I applaud you for doing that. On the restaurant lease, Mr. Supervisor, Treasurer Nadeau, good questions. Those were real good points that you brought up. One of my former lives careers was in commercial real estate as a financial analyst, and I used to evaluate leases just like you did, and those are all great points. I mean, you were really right on top of the kind of detail that you need to get into. I would say, though, that this is a very unique property, and we all know the history of restaurants at that facility, and it's difficult. It's a difficult trade area to work with, and it does sound like the negotiation team did due diligence and had an open RFP and got the best deal that they could get. But I would say that in the future, if we're looking at leasing operations like this at that restaurant, it might be possible to use a commercial real estate leasing company to do the negotiations and to actually put it out to the public, because there are leasing agents that know this kind of stuff inside out and are in the business of understanding whether or not you're getting a true market rate and what kind of concessions or adjustments are common in this trade area for leases, and just consider that as possibly an option. And then finally on the bike path, I compliment Trustee Yeager. I think that was a great compromise with the club and other interests in the community. It allows the project to move forward. You don't lose the grant funding. It's a great opportunity to connect Rosehill to the region, and I applaud that decision of the board tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And have a Merry Christmas, sir, if we don't see you before that. Thank you. Anyone else out there? Jay, did you want to change your mind on the bike path? Is that why you're sitting there? Anyone else? All right. Brian. I couldn't hear you. Your voice is gone. No, I'm kidding.
I have nothing.
I'm kidding you, sir. I'm kidding you. Okay. Our reports, clerk?
Going to make Brian talk again. We'll start out with Brian with an update from the clerk's office.
Yes. So Township Clerk's Office will be sending out some mailings here by the end of the month. So Island voters will be getting, Island voters are receiving some holiday greetings from the Clerk's Office. By the end of the month, we do need to send out ID cards to all voters to cover us on the consolidation of precincts 1 and 2, which change everyone's voter precinct number, so everyone has to get a new ID card with the change. Absentee ballot applications will go out by the end of the month also for the February 27th presidential primary. We will also be sending out early voting postcards to all households, informing them of the early voting options here for 2024 and the change. And a ballot selection postcard for those that have already put themselves on the permanent ballot list, because with the presidential primary election, you have to choose which type of ballot you would like, a Republican ballot with proposals on it, a Democratic ballot with proposals on it, or just a proposal ballot. So we will get postcards out to voters. They will need to get those postcards back to us, letting us know which ballot selection they have, just for those about 2,000 voters who have already put themselves on the ballot list. Besides that, just a couple of meetings ago, I was asked to look into a better solution for our spam filter. I did meet with our current IT company, and they did send me over a quote today for a new service. It's very reasonably priced, so I'll sit down with Derek tomorrow and we can take a look at it, and I'm assuming we will probably be switching over to a new filter. The better I know Kyle's excited. To suit our needs better, because this one has been a bit difficult to deal with.
Is that quarantine?
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
So that
Please
is all
do.
for me.
Well, we never want to say bad things about spam because you never know where that might lead. Well, with that, I want to share my wish with you for tolerance and coexistence during the season of diverse religious, cultural, and family traditions. Be safe as 2023 ends. And as the Germans like to say, we hope you have a pleasant slide into 2024. With that, clerk out.
Clerk out. Don't hurt yourself on the slide. David.
You try to make this quick. By now, everybody should have received their 2023 property tax bill. If you have not received it, contact the treasurer's office, and we'll make sure we have the proper mailing address, because every property owner should have received their bill in the mail by now. And those tax bills, the tax payments are due February 14th. And go on the treasurer's office website or department on the township website. There are deferment forms available. And the DPS commission on which I sit is meeting tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock in this office. And the Airport Commerce Park Commission is meeting next Monday, the 18th at 6 o'clock. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Trustee reports, Carl?
Good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure of sitting on Greenway's open space. We did not have a December meeting, and I have nothing further to report other than that we are having a luncheon on Wednesday. With respect to the second commission, I have the privilege of sitting on is the fire department. We are on track for 900 calls again this year. There is going to be a request for a replacement of the apparatus truck. We do have the funds on hand to do that. That is the good news. The voters of Groseal have supported the equipment fund with the fire department, so that we now have a significant amount of ability to replace equipment as it needs to be replaced. Unfortunately, this piece of equipment has run its course. It is 26 years old, and it is estimated that if we use the ambulance replacement as a yardstick, that was 3 years for replacement. The apparatus truck is more complicated, and in my estimation, we're probably looking at least 3 years with that, and we are already having some issues with that piece of equipment, and hopefully we will be able to continue to pick up the pace and have a replacement sooner than that, but it looks like it'll probably be 3 years. That's a significant cost. Chief Camilleri has put together a group that is exploring the best options available on that. As you can imagine, with a piece of equipment that's 26 years old, there's a lot of new and improved features on it, safety features and other matters that allow you to maximize the use of the equipment and the people that are using it. Third thing is I will be bringing forward to the Township Board a false alarm ordinance that's going to be done in January, and that is hopefully going to reduce some of those 900 calls. 900 calls with the number of people we have in the department is just a huge number. That works out to just less than 3 a day. And these are people that are volunteers, and while they are professionals, it's time away from their families, time away from their job, and it's time that we have an ordinance there that will be updated so that we can hopefully relieve some of the burden of false alarms. I also like to recognize the comments that Mr. Karmazin has made regarding the use of a professional. And I'm not criticizing anyone on this. I certainly do not intend to look at it. Ted Van Oss used to say that commissions and the members there are the backbone of the community. However, I think that we have previously looked at leases with the Centennial Farm that did not have perhaps the professional touch that they could have. I also recognize that commercial realtors, Greg, with all due respect, are not cheap. My recollection is somewhere around 10% of that is what we're looking at, which is a significant cost. But I think if they bring some sense of knowledge and awareness, we're not experts in the market. I do know that when we had bays that opened up, I think 10 new bays in the Commerce Park, there was a question that the prior airport manager had about pricing on those. And Greg Hornby, I believe, is a member of the Airport Commerce Park Commission, said, let's shoot higher. And in fact, those were rapidly filled and the numbers were a little bit higher. So, Greg, I share your sentiments on that, as I think that sometimes you can do things in-house that may make sense, but in retrospect, maybe having somebody else come out and advise and tell you this is what's out there, this is what's going to happen. I'm excited about the tipsy fish. I would add that occasionally when my wife and I dine off the island, we like to go to Woodside Meadows, Inkster and King Road. And that happens to be a golf course attached to a restaurant. And it is a destination place every time I've been in there. I look at the number of people and the tables there, and it is absolutely amazing. It's out in the middle of the countryside, and I'm hoping that Tipsy Fish can get us there in a couple of years, certainly sooner rather than later. So, Greg, again, I appreciate your comments, and I happen to agree very much with the idea that having a professional look at this, it worked out well with the Airport Commerce Park, and I'm hoping we can do that in the future. And lastly, and most importantly, I want to thank every member of the board, the administration that is here, Brian and Derek, and all of the people that have taken the time to come out tonight, and those of you continue to watch at home at this 25 minutes after 9 hour. The best for happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you for your support for the board and for helping make Roselle a very special place it is. Happy holidays, everybody. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Carl. Kyle.
Sure, I'll try and make this quick. I sit on the Planning Commission, which meets on an as-needed basis and is looking at dates in January. Coming out of that, I'll let Ross and others announce this, but I think we've started to meet on the master plan, and I think there's going to be a website and survey that's going to be out to the public very soon. So I'm really excited about that and to be able to share that. I will just say, I feel like tonight went really well. I think the bike path could have been a tougher conversation than it ended up being. So really good job coming up with a compromise that people were able to come together on. I was also really impressed with the public, honestly. We got really good feedback on both sides. I feel like respectful, bringing good issues forward. So it was really, I think, one of the better issues in terms of people engaging and coming together for a solution, which was just amazing to witness, I'll say. And then I'll thank everyone that both participated and attended in Boar's Head last weekend. So I was on the production. I know others on the board attended. It's always an incredible thing to see so many folks come together. It's tradition that goes back generations now for lots of folks on the island. So it was a good way to and go into this holiday season. So I'll end there, wishing everyone a happy holiday season and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Kyle. Joe.
Good evening. I sit on the Police Commission. We meet third Tuesday of the month right here in this room at 7 p.m. I have a couple things to go over. We're still in the process of hiring a new officer, still in the background investigation. I just want to say that at the Grosse-Ile Police Department, our background investigations on individuals are second to none. That's why they take so long. We look at a lot of things. We've been doing this for many years, and we're going to continue to do it. But that's why this one is taking so long that some people think it is. Actually, second thing, very good news. We got a $36,000 grant for it's a technologies grant, and what the chief is looking into right now is getting body cameras, which the officers do not have at this time, and replacing the in-car cameras, the in-dash cameras that you see on police vehicles that automatically go on when the lights go on, and they actually even back up 5 seconds if the car's in a crash. And everything is put on there to view, obviously, and it's downloaded into the system. And just so you know, the cost of both of these together, there's probably going to be it's going to be between $100,000 and $200,000, but it is budgeted through our drug forfeiture program. It won't be any cost to the citizens at all or in the budget. So that was pretty good news. And I also would just like to say, saw Kyle in the Boar's Head Festival. I like those boots you were wearing. And I usually don't talk about other things going on, but this one I have to. I thought it was really spectacular and I'm not quite sure how they do it. If it's all of the churches on Groseal and a lot of people from off the island, I believe that's how this occurs. But I was really impressed by it. I just wanted to say to everybody that was involved on stage, behind the scenes, behind the camera, it really was spectacular. I've been to a few of them. I only believe 2 of them when I was a police chief, but I was really, this one for some reason was different. I'm not sure why, but I just want to say it was spectacular, and congratulations to all of you. I saw some of the kids from high school that I teach. It was just quite a time, I think, for everybody. So anyway, I just hope everybody has a happy and healthy holiday season. And thank you, and that's it.
Thank you, Joe. Jameson.
All right, good evening. It's getting pretty late, and I've said plenty this meeting, so I'll be brief. I just want to thank Groseal Golf and Country Club, their board, and their president, Jay Frucci, for coming to the table and coming up with a good plan for us. I want to thank Jane, a former BPAC member who braved the crowd at Kroger all weekend. And trust me, not everybody had positive things to say to Jane. So she was a real trooper. And then thank the board for their consideration today. I think it's a great thing. I think it's the beginning of moving the ball in the right direction, all the way from Water's Edge, potentially doing a linear park on Bellevue. So let's just keep the momentum and go from here. So thank you. And thank you for all the residents that wrote in support and against the bike trail. It's important we hear both sides of the story. For the record, the conversations on Facebook were not quite as erudite as the emails we received, but I was in it all weekend, so glad to hear from everyone. So thanks.
Thank you, Jameson. Derek.
Just a quick few items for the board and for the residents. I'm sure everybody, when they opened their tax bill recently, they had a little bit of sticker shock. So on behalf of the assessor's office, I wanted to go over really quickly some of the reasoning behind that. So I know a lot of the chatter was about the millage rates and the recent millages that were passed over the past 10 months, 12 months or so. The difference between last year's millage rate and this year's millage rate was only about 0.45 mils. So if anybody recalls from the process that we went through with scheduling the different millage questions and the millage levies, there were a number of millages that were actually delayed in order to take advantage of some millages that were falling off, especially from sewer work that had been done some 15, 20 years ago. So the difference, last year's millage rate was about 15.5 mils. This year was about 15.98 mils. So a 0.45 difference.
Levied mills, Derek?
Levied mills, yes. So the major difference really came from the inflationary component. So inflation last year, then that comes out actually for Wayne County, not just for Groseal, but for the entire county, was 7.9%. Now, under state law, we're capped at either the rate of inflation or 5%. So the amount that was actually levied was 5% more. So the majority of the residents, the difference in your tax bill was really more attributable to the inflationary component versus actually the millage rate. So I know we've been getting a ton of phone calls in the assessor's office about why the tax bill went way up. It really wasn't attributable to millages. It was actually more attributable to the inflationary component.
I'm gonna add to that everything you've been talking about, and you're absolutely right. It wasn't the township. There was an increased school.
Yes.
People have to look at their total bill. Of course, when they look at their tax bill, it seems that they go township. It's Wayne County, it's the schools, and the township.
And that's a key point to clarify. Your tax bill, as I'm sure the majority of the residents know, it's not just Groseal Township, it's the county
Right,
and the schools
right.
as well. Groseal
So-
Township is responsible to collect those on behalf of those taxing entities. That's why the bill says Groseal Township.
Right.
But when you look at the itemized bill, there's a lot of stuff on
Right.
there. 15.5 mils, 15.98 mils, somewhere in there. That's the attributable part to Groseal Township itself,
Right.
just the township operations, police, fire, recreation, all the various departments that you rely on. So just wanted to clarify that and make sure that the residents were aware of that, because if it helps get our assessors so they don't have a couple extra phone calls down there in the office, I wanted to make sure I did
Yeah,
that.
they were deluged
Yes.
with,
Last day for yard pickup, yard waste pickup was yesterday for those on, or I'm sorry, today for those on a Monday pickup, and tomorrow for those of us that are on a Tuesday pickup. So I just wanted to make sure the residents were aware of that, because we were getting a couple of phone calls about that as well. And with that, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you coming up in January. Thank you.
very good. I'm just going to say, no DDA meeting this month. It's rare that DDA, for whatever reason, cancels a meeting, but they have done it this year, this month, so we have nothing. And I think we've had a lot of talking tonight, so all I want to do is say a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody out there. Enjoy yourself. This is the time of the year where we can a little bit forget all the problems and the issues and just enjoy ourselves. I want to wish my fellow board members a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And I think I just want to emphasize this meeting tonight took some time. We had very good discussion. I have absolutely no problem that I was at the end of a 6-1 decision. It is now a board decision, and I will support that decision as much as anybody else. That's the way it's supposed to work. So I'm very proud of our board. Thank you very much. Have a happy holiday.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Only 2 seconds? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Enjoy the holidays.